Hey, if you're looking for some new chords, if you're tired of playing the same old chords and you're looking for some new inversions, some new chord substitutions, things that you can do, then this lesson is for you. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering, your home for real nuts and bolts guitar learning. And this session we're going to be talking about, this is the second in a four-part series of chords that you need to know. I'm a professional guitarist here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I played with lots of different Grammy-winning artists over the years, and am in the studio all the time playing for this and that and doing live things. And I put down 4 different sheets of the chord forms that I use the most. These aren't hypothetical. These are the actual chords that I'm using all the time. So if you're interested in really building up your chord playing, on these 4 pages are about 98% of the chords I've ever played in my professional life. So it is a great foundation for you to know. Last time we covered the basic chords, the open chords, and the bar chords. Bar chords on the 6th string, bar chords on the 5th string. This time we're going to be talking about modern sounding chords, pop sounding chords that you can use for pop songs, for rock songs, things like that. So this session we're going to be covering 2 chords, we're going to be covering minor 11th chords, we're going to be covering power chords, all kinds of great things. So stick around. We're going to get started by downloading the chord charts that we're going to be talking about. This is the Chords That You Need to Know PDF. The link is in the YouTube description down below. You can click that and that will get you to these chord charts that we are talking about tonight. So the first one that we're going to be looking at tonight is the 2 chords on the 2nd page of these. Now, what are 2 chords before we even bother putting them up on the screen? Here's what a 2 chord is. You're going to see that a lot in modern sounding music. The song that open sort of sound. A very, instead of playing an A, you would play an A2. You could substitute an A2 into it. Instead of a D, I could play a D2, and it gets a little bit more of a contemporary sound. So those are the chords that we are going to cover. What is a 2 chord? Well, a regular major chord has the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th. If I was in the key of C, it would be C, E, and G. But a 2 chord adds a note to it. It adds the 2nd step of the scale. So C, D, E, G. And it can be in any order as far as the octaves and things like that. But the notes in the scale that you're using are the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 5th. So 1st, 3rd, and 5th, but then it adds that 2nd in there to it. So let's see how some of these 2 chords work. So if you could take a look onto your screen, we're going to put up our first examples there. These are open 2 chords. What I mean by open is they use open strings, as opposed to the movable forms, which we're going to get to in a minute, and those do not use open strings, and therefore you can move them around. So those have some advantages too. But we're going to first look at the open ones to get us started with. All right, so take a look at the first one, which is an A2. Now, if you remember, an A was open, and then 2nd finger, 3rd finger, pinky, and open, or some people do it like this. If I take that 3rd, and I'm going to put the 2nd, take him off, and that leaves the 2nd. So this particular voicing of it doesn't have the 3rd in it. It's just 1, 2, and 5. Very open sounding chord, very rich sounding chord. Great voicing. And you do that with just your 2nd and 3rd finger. That's an A2. Now the next one that we'll come across, I just put these in alphabetical order, there's not any sort of anything more than that, is a C2. Okay, so how we do a C2, if you remember, a C chord is like this, but if I switch my fingers around, put my 2nd finger up here on the 5th string 3rd fret, 1st finger on the 4th string 2nd fret, C, E, G, then I add that 2nd with my D with my 3rd finger there, and then have this open E and open G ringing. you have a C2. So here's a C. Here's what a C sounds like. A C2 adds that just a little bit of color right in there. Now you'll notice this one does have the third in it. So some of these voicings will have the third, some of these voicings will not have the third. This one particularly does. Okay, so we've learned an A2. We've learned a C2. What's next? We have a D2, and this one's easy. If you have a normal D chord, which we learned last time was first finger, third finger, and then second finger down here on the first string, if I take my second finger off, all I'm left with is my first finger on the A on the third string, second fret, my third finger on the D on the second string, third fret, and the open E. Very open. Now this one doesn't have the third, okay? So it sounds a little bit more open, like the A2. Here's the D2. And these two chords can be substituted for any major chord. If you want to sound more modern, more kind of rich sounding, start throwing in these two chords, substituting them for any major chord. So we've done A, we've done C, we've done D. What's next? E. This one's a little bit of a stretch. So if you have a regular open E chord with your second finger, third finger, and first finger, in order to get that second step, which is in the key of E would be an F sharp, well, I've got to really reach my pinky out here to the fourth fret on the fourth string. There you go. That one puts the second step, kind of puts it right next to that third in the voicing. I mean, if you just listen to these voicings, you can hear the difference between the chord that has the third and doesn't have the third. Here's the A2 without the third. Here's the D2 without the third. Here's the C2 that does have the third in it. Again, you have that second and third right next to each other, just like the E2. The ones with the third are a little bit richer sounding. The ones without the third are a little bit more open sounding. Now, in the U.S., in the Western world over here, how it's typically written is just like A2, C2. But if you're in European world, you're going to see it sometimes as sus2, or even add2, or something like that in a chord singing. So if you see like C sus2 in European notation, that would mean the same thing. One, well, slightly the same thing. In European notation, suspended is referring to an adjustment on the third. So if in European notation, it would be 1, 2, and 5. You're suspending the third and putting a 2 in its place or a 4 in its place. So that's why it's sus2 or sus4 in European notation. So if you see a sus2, it's not telling you to add the fourth, it's telling you to add the second. So a sus2 would be 1, 2, 5. Now in American notation, when you see a C2, it's kind of either you're adding the third or you can leave the third out, either one of them. Sometimes it'll say C2 no third, and when it says that, then it's specifically telling you that there's no third. So just kind of realize a little slight difference in how chords are named on the various sides of the ocean there. Okay, so we've learned, let's go back to our chords again. Go back to that graphic. We've got an A2, we've got a C2, we've got a D2. Okay, we learned an E2. Now, if you look on there, after that is an F2. So this is back on that first graphic again, and we're going to have an F2. Now, that is a third finger on the fourth string, third fret, an open G, which is the second. There's the C, and then just for good measure, we add another second right there. Again, this is one of the open sounding ones. Can you hear the difference? That's an F2 with no third. Okay, the next one, last one on that line is a G2. This, you can do it different ways. I have a couple of different ways that I typically finger that. How it's notated there is the third finger on the G. We don't play that fifth string. Notice the X there. So I kind of let this finger, his bottom part of his finger is just touching that string. second finger on the A, open B, and then pinky on the G. Now I can do the same thing as this by switching my fingers around to 2, 1, 3 rather than 3, 2, 4. Well, Steve, which one's right? Let's talk about fingerings here for a second. Some fingerings are better for various musical situations than others. This one works great when I'm doing stuff like this. This one works great when I'm doing things like this. There you go. So it just depends on what musical situation you're in. I put the most typical ones that I tend to play in right there. Now, don't get too lost in whether the third is in the chord or not. That's not really a big deal for its function in our use in modern kind of guitar playing. Sometimes that third will be in there, sometimes it won't be. So, and that's how it goes. So those are the open 2 chords. Now let me just mention here just for a second. You may be wondering, Steve, what's the difference between like a C2 and a C ninth chord? Okay, isn't the ninth and the second the same note, D, if I was in a C scale? Yes, but here's the deal. When it says C9, it's intimating that there is a seventh in there as well. So a C ninth, the formula for a C ninth would be a 1, 3, 5 flatted seventh, and then a ninth, 1, 3, 5 flatted seventh, and the ninth, as opposed to a 2 chord, which is 1, 2, 3, 5. Now, so what's the difference between those 2 chords? The seventh, the flatted seventh. So when it says C ninth, that is telling you that the seventh, the flatted seventh, is in there. When it tells you 2, then the seventh is not included. Okay? All right. There you go. Those are the open 2 chords. Steve, those sound so great. What if we could play? I wish we could play them in other keys as well. Well, let's take a look at the second illustration there. And these are the movable forms. So I have one. I basically have a movable form with a 5th string root, a couple of them on the 4th string root, and then one with the 6th string root. So let's take a look at the 4th string root, that first one there, which is an F2. Now this one involves a bar chord. Okay? So we bar with our first finger over the 4 strings. And I'm up here at the 3rd fret. Notice that in the little diagram it has a 3 FR. That's telling you that's where you put your bar. That arc is on that 3rd fret. Now also look, you'll notice that there's a diamond. So some of them are circles, some of them are diamonds. The diamond is telling you which note is the root. That's important. That's the note that we're going to be pivoting off of. So in this case, D, E, F, that's an F, and then I build this chord around it. So this is an F2. This is a great chord. A little bit of a stretch if you're not familiar with it. But let me encourage you, keep working at it. This is one that you're going to use a lot. So it's a very common chord, very useful chord. So learn how to do that one. Hey, it's an F. What if I wanted it in an E? No problem. Just scoot down a half step. And now it's an E. And then you adjust it along that 4th string by the root. So that's one on the 4th string. Here's another one on the 4th string. Remember that F2 that we learned earlier with that 2nd finger off? Well, if I put my 2nd finger back on, I've still got a 2 in my F2 chord right here on this G, but I don't have any open strings now, so I can move it. So then my root would be still on the 4th string. Now it's underneath this 3rd finger. So what if I wanted, this is an F2, what if I wanted a G2? Well, then I go F, F sharp, G, and now I play it up. There, and that's my G2. What if I wanted a B flat 2? So you have to learn those notes on the 4th string. Let's go through those really quickly. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Remember, there's only naturally occurring half steps between E and F and B and C. All right, so we've got the F2 with a big stretch. We've got this F2. There's one more I showed you. I'll show you. This is a G2. I'm going to put my pinky way over here on the 4th string, 5th fret, G. First finger on this A on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. Second finger on this 2nd string, 3rd fret. That's a big stretch as well. I know it's a big stretch. Don't give up on these big stretch chords. There's a wonderful exercise that Phil Keaggy taught, this Phil Keaggy stretching exercise. I'll try and put a link in the just YouTube description below. And that will help your hand stretch these muscles this way. So don't think, oh, if I can't play it, I'll never be able to play it. That's not how it works. You just have to stretch your hand. But Steve, why would I want to play this uncomfortable form? Oh man, this is a great form. It's a very useful form. Just use 3 strings on that one. All right, so take a look at the next one. Those are the 4th string root ones, and this is in that same second example. We're going to put that up again, and we're going to go to the 5th string. Okay. Now we've done ones on the 4th string. Here's one with the 5th string root. So if I go up maybe here to a B, and I bar all 5 strings and add my 3rd and 4th finger over here, it's like a B minor if you just took your 2nd finger off. Great chord. I use it all the time. Look, if I did it in B flat, it's right here. If I went down another half step, I have my A. So this is the same A2 shape, just moved up to B and put a bar on it. Kind of a caged approach to that. Okay, the last one I threw in just for good measure to put on the 6th string. Okay, so if I have a G there, another big stretch. Sorry, guys. 2nd finger there, 3rd finger on the 5th string, 5th fret, 4th string, 5th fret, and then your 1st string over here. What good is that form? Very cool sound, very modern sort of a sound. So I've given you some on the 4th string, I've given you some on the 5th string, and now I've given you some one on the 6th string. Those are 2 chords. Now that's basically all the 2 chords that I've ever played is those. Maybe a couple more inversions, but that's basically the 2 chords. So now the next batch that we're going to look at is we are going to look down to, if I remember right, if you go on to the next page over, and it's power chords and inversions. It's this sheet, power chords and inversions. Okay, and we're going to take a look at that first line on that, which are open power chords. Hey, I probably should grab an electric guitar if I'm going to do these. So let me grab my Strat here. All right, so here we go. I've got my regular old Fender Strat here, and we're going to talk about power chords. Okay, well, what are power chords? You'll sometimes see them written in notation as an E5, a C5. So instead of a C2, it's now a C5. Well, what is that? Okay, well, if a normal major triad is 1, 3, and 5, now these are power chords. We're taking away something from them. We're taking away that pesky third. So all that's left is a root and a 5th. Maybe I can put another root, maybe another 5th, maybe another root. Power chords. Okay, why are they called power chords? I don't know, it's just old rock and roll. So it's a great sounding chord, especially for any sort of rock playing. Okay, so let's talk about some of these important inversions. I'm going to give you some open forms, and then we'll cover some movable forms. So the open forms, but let's take a look at that. The first one I have written there, this is our third example that we have up there, is the E5. Okay, our E5. Now, let's take a look at those. It's like an E, but I'm going to take my first finger off, and I'm just going to play the bottom 3 strings. So, but Steve, what about the upper 3? I don't play those. This is power chords. I mute them out, perhaps. So I'm muting out a little bit, and they get that good power chord rock and roll sound. When I take that third out, it gets, again, a very open, sort of direct sound. Okay? So that's an E5, really easy. All of these are pretty easy to play. An A5, if I just move my second and third finger down a string set and play now the 5th, the 4th, and the 3rd string, I end up with an A5. It's like an A minor, but you don't go all the way down to that 2nd string. You're just playing the 5th string, 4th string, and a 3rd string. E5, A5. What else? We have a G5. Okay, so now I can do multiple octaves of things. So if I put my second finger on the G here on the 6th string, mute out that 5th string again. I have an open D, an open G, and a 3rd finger D, pinky G. Man, great. Great chord. Anytime you want to sound really aggressive and punchy on a G chord and you don't want to play this, okay? This, when I'm on a bluegrass gig, I play this. When I'm on a rock gig or something pop-oriented, I play that one. Really good biting sound, okay? That's a G power chord. The next one is a D5, a D power chord. I have a D, an A, and a D. You can use your second finger there, you can use your first finger there, like those other forms that we did. Which one's right? Depending on whatever the musical situation requires you to do. So don't get too bent out of shape if sometimes you need to do it this way, sometimes you need to do other ways. So that's a D5. It's just D, A, and D. It's all as D, A, and D. What if I added an A beneath it? Kind of gets a good growl doing that. Put on a little bit more distortion. E5, A5, G5, D5. Power chords. Great for good old rock and roll playing. Now, those are the open forms. Now, the last two on that line are the movable forms. Okay, again, we've got our diamond, which tells us it's the root. That's the note that we're pivoting off of. So we've got our first one I put there with a 6-string root. Take off all my crazy distortion. I got an F, a C, and an F. It's the bottom half of a regular F major, but you don't have to do the bar or anything like that. Okay. The next one, so that's an F5, F power chord. So if I wanted that to move up to an A flat, there's an A flat, B flat. There it is in F. What if I did it on the 5th string? Same shape. That's why everybody loves these power chords. It's the same shape. So there's B. Same thing. I'm pivoting now off of the 5th string. So those are some power chords for you. We've got the open forms. We've got these movable forms here for you too. Now, the next one I want to show you is, I believe I have down there the minor 11ths. I believe that's the next one we're going to cover. So I'm going to go back to my acoustic guitar. Oh, but let me show you one thing. This one's for free. Power chord. I don't have a diagram for this one, but power chords are just roots and fifths, right? Just roots and fifths. So if I'm in, you know, maybe a F, an F, a C, and an F, that's a power chord, which is just the bottom half of that F2 that we learned. What if I switch my inversion around and went C, F, C? That's still an F power chord, it just has F and C's. All I'm doing is just wobbling around on that. A great little inversion. So there are other little inversions. Don't get too lost. And some of them are really helpful. If I have a chord progression that's maybe let me see if I can get my looper going. I haven't got prepared for it, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. What if I played with some inversions? I'm just going between a C, an A minor, an F, and a G. C, A, F, and G. Lots of great fun you can have with power chords and these different inversions on that. All right, so take a look at the next example. This is our fourth example we're going to put up here. And this is some, get back to my acoustic. These are some minor 11th chords. All right, so let's think about those two chords just for a second. Okay, if I had a progression, that was an A. Maybe we can even put those two chords, that first open two chords, the first one. Maybe we can put those examples up here for a second before we get to the minor 11ths. If I had a progression that was like an A, D, E, A, D, E, back to A. Pleasant sounding. But if I wanted to make that more of a pop sounding progression, I just add twos for all of those. A, D, D, E2. What if I'm doing a little intro for some ballad? So that's where the two chords go in. I can substitute them for major chords. Is there anything that I can substitute for a minor chord? Yes, you can substitute a minor 11th chord in there. So now let's talk about minor 11ths. What are a minor 11th? Well, a minor triad would be 1 flat 3 5. The fact that it says 11th is intimating that that 7th is in there. So it would be 1 flat 3 5 flat 7. You can even have the 9th in there, and then the 11th. Okay, you don't have to have the 9th. You don't have to have them all in there, but those are the notes that are in that chord. Now, in some voicings, you may not have every one of those, but that's what a minor 11th is: 1 flat 3 5 flat 7 9, and now 11. So it's a big chord. That's a 6-note chord. So we're running out of fingers and strings. So you only got 4 fingers you're using over here and 6 strings. So sometimes you have to let one of these drop. So that's sometimes in a minor 11th, a lot of times the 9th will drop. So if I was doing that, here are two of the open ones that are the most useful. An F sharp minor 11th. Second finger on the F sharp, third finger on the E, pinky on the A, open and open. I'm muting out that fifth string. Great sounding chord. Great sounding chord. So instead of an F sharp minor, which is like this, sounds terrible on an acoustic guitar. Big old bar chord. I want to avoid those as much as possible. I want to do what an acoustic does best, which is have these open strings ringing. So let's go back to our original progression there of an A, D, and E, but now let's slip in that F sharp minor. So what if I did an A to an F sharp minor, to a D, to an E, and I did A, F sharp minor, D, E. It's okay, but not a great sounding progression. If I add two chords for the majors, and now I add this minor 11th for the F sharp minor, it ends up sounding like this. F sharp minor 11th, D2, E2, A, F sharp minor 11th. A much more interesting progression. That's where these start to work. Much more pop sounding progression. Plus, they all have the advantage of having that high E, of coloring that tone with a common note throughout all four chords. If you want to learn more about these, I did a series, a fretboard workout series called the money chords. These are the chords that are the ones that I use when I'm in the studio. The money chords. And that goes off of all of these pop sounding chords. The two chords, minor 11th, shows you all about those progressions, and it gives you a lot of good practice in that. If you want to really dive deep into these pop sounding progressions, check out that fretboard workout series on the money chords. Okay, so we've got the F sharp minor 11th, great sounding chord. If only there were one on the fifth string. Well, yes, there sure is. What if I did a B minor 11th? B, D, A, D, and then this 11th E. So what if I did my progression? What if my progression was now maybe D to B minor, to a G, to an A, but now I went D2, B minor 11th, maybe I did a G2, A2. Can you hear the difference in this sound? B minor 11th, G2, A2. So we've learned the F sharp minor 11th, we've learned the B minor 11th. What if I made those movable? What if I took those same ones and made them movable? Well, if I did the F sharp and I've just moved him up to G, well then I have to add a few things over here. If I add my first finger to this C over here, I get a movable form that is a 6-string root, a G minor 11. Now, if you're really slick, you can even bar that. It's kind of tough to do. So I generally just keep it and just go down to the second string and not hit that first string. And I can do the same trick with my B minor 11th. There's my B minor 11th. If I just bring it up a half step and bar those strings that were open, I end up with a little bit of a more jazzy sounding chord, a C minor 11th. D minor 11th. Again, these movable ones are movable by that root. So we've covered two chords. We've covered open chords and movable chords. We've covered power chords. Now we've covered these minor 11th, and I've given you some open forms and some movable forms. Let me take you to the last batch. If you look down at the bottom of that page, you'll see a line that says inversions. Okay, these are chords that also kind of work with these pop sounding progressions as well. So the first one is a G with a B in the bass. So I have my first finger on this 5th string 2nd fret, open, open, then 3rd finger and 4th finger. Okay, this is a G chord. There's the G, but it has a B in the bass. So when you see that slash, G slash B, whatever's underneath the slash is in the bass. It's not two different chords or anything like that. Some folks get confused with that. It's a G with a B in the bass. If they want something different in the bass than what is typically there, they're going to have to do a slash with it. So this is a G chord with a B in the bass. When you throw that B in the bass, what is the B in the key of G? That's its third. When you throw that third in the bass, it's a very sweet sound that kind of leads you to, maybe if you're going to a 4 chord. So if I was going maybe from a G to a C, and if I wanted to get there, maybe I could throw that little G with a B in the bass in between there. G, B in the bass, C, 2. See how great that just led us right there. B in the bass. Way to lift a progression. Instead of just going G for 2 bars, you can throw that a third in the bass. Okay, so that's a great one, G with a B in the bass. Another one that you're going to see a lot that's open is a D with an F sharp in the bass. There's our D, kind of bottom half of a D chord. Then you have the F sharp. I got to get that low F sharp in there with my second finger. If you're not familiar with these fingerings, it's just unfamiliar. It's not hard, it's just unfamiliar. Don't let anything stop your guitar learning. Don't let anything stop your guitar learning. Just decide right now, I'm not going to let anything stop me, because there's going to be 1,000 things that you're going to run into that are going to be frustrating. Don't let anything stop it. It's not this chord, it's not bar chords, it's not pentatonic scales, it's not whatever your challenge is at the moment. Decide before you even climb the mountain who's going to win. And if you think, I'm going to win, then you'll get it. It may take 2 weeks, 3 months, doesn't matter. As long as you've decided you've got it, that's the battle. Okay? D with an F sharp in the bass. What if I did my same trick again? D, what if I went from a D to a G chord, but I threw my D with the F sharp to help me get to that G chord? Okay, so that D with the F sharp really helps there. Helps raise that up to that G. That's a good chord to know. If only we would have one that would be movable. Wouldn't that be great? Yes, we do. Okay, look at the next one. E with a G sharp in the bass. So now, got my second finger here. What if I just took that D with an F sharp and scooted it up 2 frets, and I have to put my first finger over that one string that was open. I end up with this E with a G sharp in the bass. Okay, an inversion. Okay, if you're used to piano inversions, you have root inversion, which has the root on the bottom. Then you have first inversion, which has the third on the bottom. Third is the lowest tone. So this is an E with a G sharp in the bass. There's the E. Notice the diamond is on that E right there on the first. A little bit of a stretch, but that's great. I did a recording session a couple of months ago with a Motown gospel artist, Janice Gaines, and we just actually put up the video for that this week. If you want to look at, go on YouTube and type in Janice Gaines. I think the name of the song is All in Control. You can see the video that we did. In that video, I use these inversions all the time. Just pure right down this line. Okay, so these are very helpful forms to know. All right, so we've covered the open inversions, the G with a B, D with an F sharp, then I showed you a movable one, the E with a G sharp. Let me give you 2 really helpful alternate bass chords as we're closing up. You ready? These are really helpful as well. It's on that same line as the inversions, but if you look to the very last two shapes over there, the first one you see is a G, an F with a G in the bass. An F with a G in the bass. Don't let that confuse you. It is functioning as a G chord, kind of a G11th, if you want to think of it that way. F with a G in the bass, a 4 with a 5 in the bass. Great, a great chord. If you want to do a key change or anything like that, a 4 over 5, F with a G in the bass. There's no open string in that, so it's movable, kids. If I moved it up 2 frets, it'd be a G with an A in the bass. If it was a 2 more frets, an A with a B in the bass. Hey, here's a little jazz trick for you. We haven't got the jazz chords; those are next week. But if I take these 2 fingers and move them down 1 fret, oh yeah, I got a jazz chord. A great chord change if you need to go anywhere. What if I'm in the key of C and I want to change keys to the key of D? What chord can I put in there to help me get to the key of D? No problem. You have to just think, what's the 5 of the key that you're going to? What's the 5 of the key of D? That would be an A. So I throw my little 4 over 5 chord, my little magic chord that Steve taught us, 4 over 5, that G with an A in the bass right before that D. And let's see if that works. So we're going to play a little bit in C. F2 here. G2. Back to C2. So we're in the key of C. F2. Now it's time to go to the key of D. So I'm going to throw this 4 over 5. Did you hear that? It works to go to any key. What if I wanted to go to the key of E flat? Oh my goodness. From C to E flat? That's really going to sound awkward. No, you throw the little 4 over 5 magic chord right before the 5 of the chord key that you're going to, and it works great. Here we are in C again. We're going to go to the key of E flat. Right there, okay? That's a little secret. You can throw that chord in, and in as the 5 of the chord that you're going to, the target chord, the new key that you're going for, instant key change, instant key change. All right, here's another great one. Another way to play a 4 over 5 is on the 5th string, and here I just put it at the 3rd fret. So it's a B flat with a C in the bass. Same thing, 4 over 5, okay? So this would be great if I want to go to the key of F. Remember, it's the C, go to the key of F. You can add other chords, little notes to it. Those little 4 over 5s work great as transition chords to get you, they work great as a 5 chord to get you where you want to go. So there you go. We've covered 2 chords, we've covered power chords, and we covered some wonderful inversions, minor 11ths, pop-sounding chords. You can sound modern, sound pop by just adding a couple of these inversions, and it'll really take your playing off. Even if you're not in a guitar-friendly key, you throw on a capo, put it wherever you need to put the capo in order to get it into the right key, and then you start using these open voicings, and you'll sound amazing. Hey, check it out. This is part of a 4-part series. The next time, we're going to do a workout over these chords so we really get these forms underneath your fingers. Hey, I'm Steve Krenz for Guitar Gathering. We will see you guys next time.